She cooked with love. He rose with fire and left her in the ashes. But what he thought was the end of her story was only the beginning of her legend. This is a tale of betrayal, resilience, and the woman who turned heartbreak into a heavenly feast. Moron KJ could cook with her eyes closed. From the age of 15, she'd been helping her mother stir fairy pepper stew outside their family home. And when her mother died, Moron stepped into the fire, literally. She started small, selling boiled groundnuts and roasted corn at the Akinwale motor park. Her fingers blackened with smoke. Her voice hoarse from calling customers. But she never gave up. Then came Akinwale, a skinny young man from a neighboring town, stranded one evening at the park. He hadn't eaten all day. She gave him free corn. He said, "If you feed me like this, I'll marry you." She laughed. He wasn't joking. "You have fire in your hands and warmth in your heart," he said. "I may have no money, but if you walk with me, we'll rise together." And Moron, tired of being alone, believed him. They married quietly, nothing loud, just family, prayers, and a small basin of jollof rice cooked by Moron herself. With the little they had, she set up a roadside food stall where the pot never fails. Akin helped sometimes, running errands, washing plates. But most of the time, he talked about dreams. How he wanted to change the food game. Open a restaurant, be on TV, compete with big chefs. Moron believed in those dreams. She woke up by 4 a.m., boiled water, sliced okra, mashed peppers. She sold from dawn till dusk, sometimes on credit. When she saved enough, she bought a second bench for customers, then a canopy, then bigger pots. And when Akin said, "Let's go to the city, babe. Let's expand," she sold her gold chain to rent a small space in Lagos for him to start something. He went ahead, but he never returned the same. At first, Akin called often. "Baby, I miss your stew. I'm trying. Be patient." Then the calls reduced. Then they stopped. Moron kept sending him dried ogbono and crayfish. She even visited once. He looked stressed, tired, and confused. But she stayed only 2 days. He said, "I'm not settled yet. Let me stand first." She went back, cooked with tears in her soup. One day, a cousin sent her a video from Instagram. Akinwale, clean, plump, and polished on a cooking show. Plenty yam balls beside a light-skinned woman in chef white. Meet the city chef, power couple, Akin and Mimi. Moron's heart stopped. Chef what? Couple who? She collapsed that day. Not from sickness, from betrayal. "He left me," she whispered to Mama Taye. "He left me with debts, pots, and a heart full of ash." But in Akinwale, Gossip has legs. People whispered. Did he use her to climb? She made him, fed him, built him. He dropped her like burnt rice. Shame swallowed her voice, but something else started rising too. Anger, determination. He thinks he used me. No, he awakened me. Moron stood up, tightened her wrapper, went back to her pot. This time, not for survivor, but for legacy. Moron reinvented her buka. She stopped selling on credit. She painted the walls, hired 2 young girls to help. She renamed it Stories in the Pot. Each dish came with a short tale, a proverb, a lesson, a quote from her mother. People came not just for amala, but for wisdom. One popular blogger from Akure stumbled on her spot and posted, "The most soulful buka in Akinroko. You eat, you heal." Moron's fame began to rise quietly. She still hurt, but her fire now had purpose. Moron KG didn't sleep the night Akinwale's new chef wife went viral. She sat by her firewood kitchen, staring at the flickering flames. Her hands smelled of palm oil and onion, but her heart reeked of betrayal. I let joy into my heart, gave him all of me. What did I get in return? Adebayo, our little son, stayed in the corner. He had his father's dimples, but she swore she'd raise him with her own fire. That week, she did something daring. She renamed her buka Food That Writes Your Story. And every dish was now branded with names like Spinach of Abandonment, Melon of Joyful Recovery, Rice of Heartbreak. People didn't just eat. They asked questions. They sat and listened. Some cried. Women came not just to eat, but to talk and to heal. Her buka had become a therapy room with a smoky roof. One afternoon, Moron was flipping dodo when a young man walked in with his phone camera. "Ma, is it true you're the original recipe owner of Chef Akinwale's famous pepper soup?" She didn't flinch. "You people are looking for story." He nodded. She turned back to her pot. "My recipe, my fire, my hands that taught him to grind pepper, to boil goat meat, to layer aroma with locust beans. Ask him the first time he sliced onions," he cried. The clip went viral. The real story behind Chief Akinwale's signature dish. That same week, a fight broke out between Akin and Mimi on a live show. She accused him of stealing rural food energy and claiming it as his own. Sponsors pulled back. Akin's face began to fade from billboards. Moron didn't laugh. She stirred her pot and whispered, "Nothing built on deceit ever lasts." Akin came back to Akinroko in a tinted car, wearing sunglasses that couldn't hide the shame in his eyes. He stopped by her buka. No cameras, no pride, just a man whose sand castle had melted. Moron was serving a widow and her daughter when she saw him. Her eyes stayed calm. He greeted quietly. Moron, She handed the woman her change, turned slowly. Yes? I made mistakes. She nodded. Mistakes have consequences. I miss Bayo. I want to come home. The crowd around the buka grew still. Moron laughed softly. Not in mockery, but clarity. Oh? This pot you spat in, you now want to drink from? His voice cracked. I've lost everything. He stepped close. You didn't just lose me, Akin. You lost your own soul trying to chase sugar-coated shame. He walked away. Nobody clapped. Nobody pitied him. The firewood crackled louder than ever. Weeks passed. Moron started a Sunday gathering behind Abuka. Not church, not politics, just stories. Widows, single mothers, abandoned lovers, even teenage girls. They came with tears and left with strength. Each Sunday, someone told their story beside the fire. They cried, they laughed, they cooked. Moron called it the gathering of women who feed and feel. A journalist from Abeokuta visited and wrote, in Akiroko, a woman is healing broken lives with stew and stories. Donations began to come in. She used the money to buy benches, school fees for 2 girls, and a canopy with the words, a woman who cooks through pain heals a nation. One night, as rain poured on the zinc roof of her small room, Moron sat with her son, Bayo. She said, your father once told me I was too local to stand beside him. He blinked, but my food has crossed rivers. My pain has fed nations. I didn't chase the spotlight. I lit my own lamp. She kissed his forehead, then wrote in her diary, a man who eats your food but cannot honor your fire is not hungry. It had been months since Akinwale returned to Akiroko in disgrace. Now, word was spreading. His so-called chef empire had collapsed. Chef Mimi had filed a fraud complaint after a sponsorship scandal involving misused culinary funds. Social media dragged them both, but Akin bore the brunt. One morning, under the scorching sun, Akinwale returned to the buka again. But this time, he didn't drive. He walked. Dusty, thinner, head bowed. Moron was staring ogbono by the fire. She saw him. He knelt. The whole street paused. Moron Keji, please. Let me just eat from your pot. One last time. Silence. Then she looked at one of her girls. Give him food. Not for love. Not for history. But because he is hungry. He ate quietly, swallowing regrets between each morsel. This tastes like forgiveness, he whispered. She replied, no. It tastes like survivor, and I've been cooking it alone for years. 3 days later, a white envelope arrived at the buka. Moron almost didn't open it. Most important news in Akiroko didn't come with stamps. But inside was a typed letter. Dear Madam Moron Keji, we would like to formally invite you to represent Akiroko at the National Food Heritage Festival in Abuja. Your story and cuisine have moved hearts and sparked conversation. Yours sincerely, Nigeria Culinary Heritage Council. She stared at the words. Her hands shook. Her past had burned her, but now her present was feeding nations. The same woman who once begged park drivers for change, now being called to feed dignitaries with the taste of resilience. She cried. She laughed. She fell on her knees beside her stove. Olorun, you turned my pepper into perfume. Preparations for Abuja began, but not without whispers. Why her? Is it not Buka food? She's not even a trained chef. But Moron didn't waver. She had cooked through heartbreak. This was easy. She gathered her team. They washed uniforms, polished pots, practiced recipes. They prayed over every pepper. At Akiroko Market, women donated yams and plantains. Even the town's oldest hunter gifted her dried bushmeat for authenticity. It wasn't just Moron going to Abuja. It was a whole forgotten town rising through one woman's spoon. Before she left, she whispered to Bayo, "Your mother is about to feed kings, but I'm doing it with a spoon. Life once threw at me." The Abuja hall glittered with lights and suits. Top chefs plated foreign dishes with stainless steel. Glass ovens hummed. Camera crews circled. Then Moron arrived. In a faded but ironed Ankara, wooden spoon in hands, and a pot that smelled like every Yoruba grandmother's kitchen. They laughed at first, until she opened the lid. Amala with okra so smooth, it danced on its own. Pap so thick and rich. One spoon could silence bitterness. Judges sniffed, tasted. One judge, a French chef, stood up. "What do you call this flavor?" She looked him straight and said, "I call it fire and forgiveness." That night, her name trended. Hashtag Moron the fire. Hashtag village to victory. Hashtag food that remembers. Back in Akiroko, a celebration exploded. Dancing to batter drums, banners flew. Education isn't only from book. Moron has taught us from fire. A local station requested to start a show with her, Tales from the Pot, where she'd cook and tell real women's stories. She agreed, but only if the filming would take place in Akiroko. I built here. I burned here. I rose here. My story must remain where it started. Aki saw it all on TV. Sick, lonely, sitting on his mother's floor, watching a woman he once tossed aside, carrying the nation's attention without bitterness. She didn't need to change to win, he whispered. She just needed to survive long enough to be seen. When Moron heard Akinwale was coming back to Akiroko, she didn't flinch. Not because he didn't hurt, but because pain had matured her. The whispers reached her stall like dry harmattan wind. He lost the restaurant deal. Chef Mimi dumped him, took the recipe rights. He's now hiding in his uncle's house. Once upon a time, this news would have shaken her. Now, she simply stirred her pepper soup and whispered, The one who poured water on another's head will carry these consequences in buckets. Still, his return stirred the town. Some mocked, some pitied. But one morning, as the sun stretched over the rooftops of Akinwale, Akinwale walked in and the air shifted. He looked thinner, older, deflated. But he still had pride in his bones. Moron raised her head from behind the steamy pots, calmly met his eyes. I heard your food saved this town. Not the food, she said. The truth inside it. Silence. Then, I messed up, Moron. Her lips tightened. Yes, you did. But this isn't a kitchen for apologies. This is a place for those who hunger, for food or for healing. He blinked. Are you hungry? He nodded slowly. She served him, not because he deserved it, but because she had risen above him. Word of Akinwale's shame spread faster than hot oil. Some said it served him right. Others said men make mistakes. But Moron did speak publicly. She let the food speak. One day, she noticed something odd. Akinwale returned, not once, not twice, but daily. He sat quietly in the back, ate slowly, and sometimes helped clear dishes. Customers stared. Girls whispered. He was becoming a shadow. She finally asked, "What are you doing here, Akin?" He looked up, eyes sunken. "Trying to find myself again." She sighed. "Don't look for yourself in a place you burnt down. Go rebuild from your ashes." He nodded, and for the first time, he left. Chef Mimi posted her wedding photos, not to Akinwale, but to a real estate mogul in Abuja. And guess who she tagged? Akinwale, with the caption, "Thank you for the foundation. I built on it." It went viral. The shame returned like unpaid debts. Moron saw the post and paused. The pain had faded, but she felt something deep. Not victory, not anger, just release. She whispered, "The knife cut deep, but it carved me into something better." Her customers noticed something new in her meals. Deeper tastes, more layers. The story in her pots now had a new chapter. Forgiveness. Months passed. Moron's buka became a full restaurant. Local banks approached her with grants. NGO came calling. Even a TV station interviewed her. But the biggest twist came quietly. One day, she got a letter written on rough paper, folded carefully. No name. "I'm sorry, Moron KG. Not just for what I did, but for who I became. You fed me with hope, and I repaid you with hunger. I am starting over in Ondo, helping a young chef who reminds me of you. Not for money, for redemption. Thank you for teaching me how to eat with respect." She held the letter. No tears, just a soft smile. In the heart of Akinwale, under the orange glow of evening, Moron stood before a new signboard. From Fire to Fortune. A memoir by Moron KG Alade. Yes, she had written her story. Not to shame Akinwale, but to help others like her. Women who sacrificed, were betrayed, who thought their story had ended. Sometimes, pain is the fire that cooks our greatness. The crowd clapped. Akiroko stood still that night, and her name, it burned like sweet stew across the land. That night, Moron walked alone to the back of her old stall. She sat on the bench where she once cried for lost love. Now, she sat with peace. Not all betrayals end in bitterness. Sometimes, they birth better beginnings. She whispered. The breeze carried her words, and the stars twinkled like the eyes of every woman who ever gave too much and finally gave to herself. Some betrayals are loud. Some creep in gently like morning fog. But the ones that cut deepest are the ones we never saw coming. From those who we loved, trusted, and gave everything to. Moron Keji gave her life to a man who walked away the moment he tasted success. But she didn't stay broken. She gathered the scattered pieces of herself, slowly, painfully, and cooked something the world couldn't ignore. In the pot where pain once simmered, she stirred healing. In the kitchen where her dreams once died, she lit new fire. Let this be a reminder. You are not what was done to you. You are what you choose to become next. And sometimes, just sometimes, the dish the world tried to spit out becomes the very thing they hunger for.